Lawrence!
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 12, NFL cheat sheet, injuries, fantasy rankings, DFS, props, underdog, everything you need to know. If you want this in a condensed cheat sheet version, easy. 4for4.com on Saturday evening, it'll be published. Or if you want to get it sent directly to you, hit the description, join the free Mayo Media newsletter, and find it all in there in your inbox later on Saturday night. Remember to smash the like, sub to the channels, and turn those notifications on because we're doing a live Red Zone stream, 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Additionally, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday night live. Expect to see you there. Plus, we're going live on Thanksgiving morning as well, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Me, Cam, Rob, Cust, Jeff, we're all there doing our best bets for the game and helping you kill some time before you have to go check out your family, which you probably don't want to do. Watching football, yes. Tuning into the PME beforehand, even better. Let's get to the injuries at running back in week number 12. Bucky Irving is out again for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The expectation is that he will return in a week, so fingers crossed on that one. I would expect to see more Sean Tucker than Rachaad White in this game. However, against a formidable Rams run defense, even if Sean Tucker ends up with more touches in this game on the ground, I think that Rachaad White will end up being leaned upon in the passing game, which is probably going to be more effective from a fantasy perspective, unless Tucker can find the end zone. Tucker's probably the 55-45 favorite to outscore Rachaad White here in terms of overall upside, but most of the time it's going to be Rachaad White right around 10, 12 points, and maybe he sneaks in a touchdown. They still like him near the goal line, so I still prefer Rachaad White by a hair in terms of floor over Sean Tucker this week. Amare DiMercado is out for the Arizona Cardinals. Additionally, Trey Benson will not be returning for the Cardinals either in the backfield, which really whittles it down to Bam Knight as the starter, Michael Carter as the backup, Bam Knight probably in a 70-30 split, so Bam Knight's inside the top 24 at running back this week. He's a nice reverse pivot in that game if you're looking to build DraftKings-wise, because as we went through on the show on Friday with Tambo, John, and myself, we really, again, for the second straight week, love that cheap stack that you can get with Jacoby Brissett, Trey McBride, and Michael Wilson, with one of the guys on the Jags coming back. If you wanted to flip that and do the Trevor Lawrence side, obviously you want McBride, but maybe Bam Knight, if he can score 2 touchdowns and it's not Jacoby Brissett passing them in, could be a really nice path in this game and a very cheap price as well. Things got expensive, as we'll find out in a minute, because some of the cheaper plays dried up. That Bam Knight below $5,000 is probably the best of all of the $4,000 to $5,000 running backs. Probably the only one you should really want to consider this week. Isaiah Pacheco practiced in full on Wednesday, yet he is still out against the Indianapolis Colts. For the Chiefs, Kareem Hunt gets a start. Rashard Smith in the backfield, a mix of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's Hunt, touchdown, or bust. Only he's outside the top 25 at running back against the Colts this week. Samaje Perine is expected out in the Bengals backfield, which means, once again, over on Chase Brown receptions. I think the line's actually at 5.5 this week, but it is juiced to the plus. I still like it because Burrow will not be returning after practicing all week. It's going to be Joe Flacco again. Obviously, no Jamar Chase in this game. So who are they going to end up passing to? It's a pretty clear funnel with Christian Gonzalez on T. Higgins. I actually like T. Higgins unders here. I think he's a bit of a trap this week. Still a guy you're going to play in season-long fantasy, but he's not in the smash spot of all smash spots because he's going to get that extra attention. It's going to be Chase Brown leaking out of the backfield, catching passes, because the Patriots have one of the best rush defenses in the league. Don't expect him to do much on the ground. He will handle the goal line carries, but it's the receiving game that you want from Chase Brown. Then Andre Yeshmesh. That is who I like on DraftKings at $4,100. That at 3.5 catches, I like the over on. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of these passes funneled to this week, especially as 7.5 point dogs. They got to be throwing at home in this game against the Patriots. So that is the slant that I like there. Emmanuel Wilson was looking like the pickup of the week, the DraftKings play of the week, and an absolute must start at home against the Vikings with Josh Jacobs out. There's a problem. It looks like Josh Jacobs is going to play in this game now. So I don't love either of them. I like Jacobs more than I like Wilson, but I have him just inside the top 20, Wilson just inside the top 30. I think you'll see a bit more of a split. There's always a chance that Jacobs still ends up inactive for this game, which, it being an early game, we're going to know right away. If Jacobs remains out, Wilson vaults back up to running back number 12 for the week and becomes a great play on DraftKings. But because of this news, it does seem like he is leaning in in at this point. Again, the newsletter is going to cover all of the extra information that comes out throughout Saturday if we get some more breaking news later on. That's why you need to sub to the Mayo Media newsletter on Substack. Get it sent directly to you. I'll also tweet this stuff out and the rankings update anytime it changes. Jaylen Warren is in for the Steelers, so he's a good start because it's a good matchup against the Bears with 3 of their linebackers out in this game and then playing backup. It's going to be a bit tough to tackle, but it's hard to know where the split is going to go either way because we still don't know who's playing quarterback for sure. It's leaning like it's Aaron Rodgers at the moment. I don't know if it makes that big of a difference, but they could have different guys for different quarterbacks in that backfield. Obviously, Warren left the game a week ago with his ankle injury. Kenny Gainwell scores 2 touchdowns. All of a sudden, Caleb Johnson's in the mix all of a sudden. Wouldn't expect that to continue. It's not a great spot only because we can't really confirm how many carries he's going to get in this game. If you told me he had 15 touches, he'd be a top 12 option. And that's why I have him at number 14 in the rankings. I think he'll be right around there. If he gets 20 touches, he's even better. If it flips the other way or he re-aggravates his injury, then all of a sudden he's not a very good play. So it's a very volatile situation with Warren. I would start him if I had him, unless I had great options otherwise, but that's where we stand with Jaylen Warren. Justice Hill is going to be back in as the primary backup to Derrick Henry as 13.5-point favorites against the Jets this week. I expect a lot of Henry, not a lot of Justice Hill. You only see Hill really in passing downs and catch-up situations, and we've been seeing more Keaton Mitchell anyway in the Ravens backfield, that it might just be a split between those two. Brashel Tutin is going to play for the Jags against the Cardinals, so ETN gets bumped down a little bit. He goes from top 10 to just inside the top 16, Tutin just inside the top 30. You could make them closer if you wanted. I know there's a lot of buzz about King Tutin in this game against the Cardinals. Maybe he ends up scoring the touchdown. He's not a bad desperation play if you need one, but I would still feel more comfortable starting ETN in this matchup. Ramondre Stevenson is looking like he is going to be in for the Patriots. So all those optimizers that were spitting out Emmanuel Wilson and Trevian Henderson earlier on in the week kind of went up in dust in this situation with Henderson being back. No idea with a toe injury how involved he's going to be. But as we've seen all season long, they like to give the ball to Stevenson over Henderson. Maybe that has shifted a bit more, but it's not like he's going to be a non-factor. At best for Henderson, I think you're looking at a 65-35, but that could even be flipped. Who knows what Mike Vrabel is going to do in this spot. Drake London is out for the Atlanta Falcons. We know that Michael Penix is out as well, so Kirk Cousins is starting in this game. We get to the buy low model from 4-for-4 a little bit later on. Darnell Mooney is getting the targets. He is just simply not coming down with the ball. Kirk Cousins talked about all week that he wants to get Mooney the ball. I don't really think you need to worry yourself about Casey Washington or Kenny Sills or any of these guys. Maybe they have value in a 16-team league because you need someone to go pick up, but it's Mooney, Pitts, their fringe starts at best. Really, it's Bijan or bust on the Falcons this week with all of their backups. The fact that they're now underdogs to the Saints. I do like Atlanta in that game because I just can't back the Saints as a betting favorite, but that doesn't mean I like them fantasy-wise. Garrett Wilson is out for the New York Jets in a big catch-up spot, presumably, against the Ravens. And the weather in that game actually looks pretty good in Baltimore, even it being outside in almost December. A.D. Wilson is going to be number 1 of the Jets receivers. Not a must-start, but he's someone who gets wide open. He just can't catch the ball. That's an issue when you're a receiver. John Mechie, Mason Taylor's probably the best of the Jets options, and he barely cracks the top 12 at number 12 at tight end this week. Marvin Harrison is out with that appendix injury again for the Cardinals. Obviously, Zay Jones is done for the year, so it's going to be in the pecking order: Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, everyone else. So it's a pretty condensed tree with a team that loves to pass the ball. They're going to be a very chalky stack this week. I don't care. I'm going to go back to them again. They won us a ton of money last week. Do I expect Michael Wilson to have 15 catches again? No, I don't. But 7? Yeah, most definitely on the table against this Jags defense. Alec Eomanor is going to be out with a hamstring injury for the Titans, but DK is going to be back in with a chest injury. Obviously, Calvin Ridley done for the season, so DK is in a nice spot here. You have Van Jefferson, you have Kinsey. You still don't have to play these guys because they're playing Seattle's defense. Frankly, there is no Titan I would want to start on a competitive team this week. If I had to pick one, it would be DK in this spot. On the other side of the ball, Torrey Horton is out again for the Seahawks, so we're going to see It's difficult to know whether it's going to be more Cup or whether it's going to be more Shaheed. I would still prefer Shaheed if you had to pick between the two because of the big play threat. Neither one of them cracked the top 40 at receiver this week. Rashad Bateman is out again for the Baltimore Ravens. Love Zay Flowers in this matchup against the Jets. It's either going to be receptions over or it's going to be receiving over, depending on the boost that you see from me this week. Darius Slayton is back in off the injury report with his hamstring injury against the Lions. I really liked Isaiah Hodgins this week at 3,300 on DraftKings. I still don't hate him because of the price tag. And as we saw last week in the first look of the new offense, and it's going to be Winston starting again, not Jackson Dart. He remains in concussion protocol. He's out. That Jalen Hyatt ended up running like 60% of the routes last week, so it seemed like they firmly committed to a 3 wide receiver base, which means Hyatt back to the bench, in my mind at least. Hodgins playing in this game with Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. You have Slayton and Hodgins on the outside. It might cut in to Hodgins' ADOT and deep threat looks in this game. I still think he's just a very good receiver that they seem to want to use, and we've seen him go off in certain spots. So 3,300, even if he doesn't do a ton, he could still help you fit in that Lions stack as the comeback in that game. Chris Godwin is leading in against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. We're not going to know until Sunday Night Football, so I wouldn't rely on Chris Godwin. If I had him, I would not play him this week because who knows how healthy he is? Who knows if he's actually going to play by the time game time comes along? Who knows if he's on a snap count? And it's against the Rams. It's not a great situation to be in. Tyler Higbee on the other side of the ball has been placed on IR. What you gonna do at tight end for the Rams? Fortunately, they still have 3 more. Ferguson would be the one that I like the most, but I'm not playing any of these guys. Mike Gesicki has been elevated off of injured reserve. He's going to be back in with his pec injury. He can make him dance again. That's bad for Noah Fant. Can't start any of the Bengals tight ends because, frankly, you don't want to. Even in a nice spot, with 3 of them now running routes down Jamar Chase, it's going to be a little bit tougher to peg out which one is going to be the one. David Njoku is going to be in for Shadur Sanders' first start against the Raiders. I have no idea how that game is going to go. I like the under of Shadur Sanders in terms of passing yardage, but it could be Njoku. It could be Finn. It could be Tillman. It could be Bond, who's back this week as well. I don't really care. The one Brown I'd play is Judkins, and that's it. And even he is not a fantastic start. I have him at running back number 18 this week. It's like him or Genty. I'd probably play him over Genty because it's a bad matchup on the other side of the ball too, but just give me Judkins in that spot. Don't worry about the tight ends. Find better ones. Hell, you could potentially even play Brenton Strange with his hip injury. He is a game time decision, and we're not going to know because that is a later game. But if they do declare him in, he would vault up to right around that Hunter Henry range of tight end number 13 on the week. I'd probably still play Theo Johnson over him because Hunter Long is out for the Jags as well. So it would be Strange, but first game back, who knows? It's a difficult situation, and you will only have so many options to choose from if Strange doesn't go, and we don't know that information until 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. So be very wary of that. He still might be available on a ton of waiver wires, and with Brian Thomas Jr. out again, there would be targets available for him in the pecking order this week of the Jags receivers. I like Myers, Washington, they're kind of close. Diami Brown way after that. Strange would go in over Diami Brown if he was active. If not, it's going to be Johnny Munt in this game, who if he can find like 1.5 catches, I don't mind the over of that, but that's it. I actually bumped down Hunter Henry as well because Austin Hooper is out of concussion protocol, and he is expected to return this week for the New England Patriots. It just takes away from his overall upside. It's not that Henry can't have a big game with Hooper in. It's just more unlikely that he has a big game with Hooper returning. Quarterback injuries, as mentioned, Burrow is going to be out another week. He'll play. Next week, Joe Flacco is starting. No word on his shoulder. Sounds like it's fine. He's going to be playing. Jackson Dart is out with a concussion. Jameis is going to start. Michael Penix is out against the Saints. Kirk Cousins is starting. Justin Fields, because he's bad. He's bad! And he's been benched. Tyrod is going to start. Better news for Mason Taylor with Tyrod in rather than Justin Fields. Obviously, CJ Stroud missed the Thursday night game. Josh Allen got banged up in that game too, but 10 days rest, he should be fine in that spot. But Davis Mills now 3-0 as the starter, at least the primary quarterback for the Titans. Dylon Hot Fire Gabriel will be spitting hot fire on the bench. He's out. Shadur Sanders is starting. I hope he has a great game because I would love to see him be good, but doesn't seem like it's going to happen that way. At least now, maybe with a all the ones and all the practice he gets to have, maybe he'll be awesome. I still doubt it. I like his under of 170 this week in passing yards. Aaron Rodgers has that hand injury, the big, giant hand. He is leaning in to play because it is his non-throwing hand. He does not need surgery. Again, that's going to be a game time decision. The newsletter will clarify whether he's in or out. I would expect to have that information by Saturday afternoon, but we'll have it by Sunday morning. Nonetheless, we'll know before game time. I'm not playing Aaron Rodgers this week, but I do think that he is an upgrade for most of the guys in the Steelers lineup over Mason Rudolph. Frankly, I just think he's better. Others disagree with me on that front. Rob and Cam included. I still think that Rodgers has a bit of juice left, and that still makes him, especially with the downfield threat. Not that they ever throw downfield, but if they did, Rodgers still does have that arm. We do see him periodically, every few weeks, take a few shots, and that could be good news for DK Metcalf, who, as we'll see later on, is in the buy low receiver model this week as well. Stay tuned. We got props, underdog, sharp stack, and DFS all coming up right after the break. Somewhat surprisingly, I actually take tailgating very seriously. Grill fired up, cooler packed, and yeah, I'm the guy everyone counts on for the food. Whether that's my home barbecues, birthdays, tailgating, doesn't matter what it is, Pat Mayo is always relied upon for bringing the food. That's why I go with Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. They've been America's original butcher for over a century, and everything they send is top-notch, perfectly aged steaks, juicy burgers, those thick, deli-style franks, all delivered directly to your door. I tossed the ribeyes on the grill last weekend. Crazy tender, amazing flavor, and you can taste the quality. There's no off-season for flavor here. Make your next game day delicious with Omaha Steaks. Just head to omahasteaks.com and use promo code MAYO at checkout for $35 off your order. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code MAYO. Terms apply. See site for details. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Holidays, they're here, which means it's officially gift-giving season. Nothing says, I appreciate you, quite like the gift of smoothness of your balls. Whether you're shopping for your partner, your brother, or honestly, yourself, the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate upgrade. This thing is a full grooming arsenal. You get the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Trimmer. Super precise, very reliable, and great for keeping everything neat before those holiday parties or date nights or random people that you haven't seen in 15 years that you meet at a bar when you go home at Christmas time. You want to be trimmed, all right? Plus, the Weed Whacker 3.0 for nose, ear, and eyebrow cleanup so you're not showing up with rogue hairs trying to ruin your family photos is a must. Give the gift of smooth this holiday season with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Get 15% off your entire order with code PATMAYO at manscaped.com. That's 15% off with code PATMAYO at manscaped.com. Stay on top of your grooming game and be ready for anything the season throws your way. Now that I'm old, I've had to come to the fact that I just don't bounce back the way that I used to. I don't wake up in the morning feeling normal. And now that football season has started, that is absolutely unacceptable. I got work to do in the morning, and I got kids that are waking up. It's no good. But that isn't a problem anymore because I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. The ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol the first drink of your night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel the best tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/PatMayo to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use PatMayo at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/PatMayo and use the code PatMayo at checkout for 15% off. Welcome back to the Pat Mayo Experience. Smash the like and sub to the channel while you're here. And if you're in Canada, outside of Ontario, watching this, highly recommend CoolBet. Hit the description, get the link to the PME drop page, because right here on the left side of the screen where it says exclusives, there's going to be at least one PME exclusive this week. I'm begging for two because there's a bet that I really like. I was able to bet it at another site, and it's the only one that had it. I want to get CoolBet to match it. It is Seattle minus 10.5 first quarter against the Titans. I got it at 8-1. I'm hoping they'll boost it up to 9-1 for me. So check back on coolbet.com if that's where it's at. The other one that I want to have is a 5-leg player prop parlay, which I'm hoping gets right around 20-1. We'll see. Zay Flowers, 60 or more yards. Pollard, under 40 yards. Genty, under 60 rushing yards. McBride, 75 or more receiving yards, and Shadur Sanders under 170 passing yards would be the 5. When it's up there, you can check back at coolbet.com later on under the PME exclusives tab and check that out, because I'm very excited for that one. And we hit 2 of the past 2 weeks, and I tried one again on Monday night, and we lost it by 2 yards on the 5-banger, so that's no good. We almost hit a 16-1, 6-1, and 17-1 on back-to-back-to-back goes. But hey, you don't win them all, and that's where I'm at with Underdog right now. I hit some big ones, so I'm spending this week on Underdog. Code Mayo at Underdog to get yourself a deposit bonus, and if you play a $5 entry, you will get up to, or actually you'll get a free $100 in fantasy bonus funds to win or lose on an entry. You can play a bunch of these if you want to. I won big on basketball earlier this week, cashed myself out $3,500 and left the rest around. So you can see I'm just kind of spamming the board here. This is kind of goes with that story that I was telling about the Seattle minus 10.5 in the first quarter against the Titans. How do they do that? Well, the Titans don't move the ball, and Seattle does move the ball. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 30 or more first quarter receiving yards. Tony Pollard, lower than 14.5 first quarter rushing yards. It doesn't pay a ton. I believe it's like almost 3-1 on that. Yeah, 2.78. I like that, though. That's where I wanted to go. Some of the other ones that I have on the go, this is Patrick Williams for the Saturday night Bulls game, lower than 14.5 points, rebound, and assists. Thank you, Sharp Stack. That's one that I'm going to be on. Cedric Tillman, Shadur Sanders. Tillman higher than 22.5 receiving yards. Sanders lower than 159.9 passing yards. That's one of the lowest on the market. I still like that at the plus juice that it ends up giving you. The payout on this is 125, pays 11.59.2 multiplier on that one. So you're getting a lot of plus juice with the anti-correlation between Tillman and Sanders. Judkins is the other one you could go with. You could go with Sanders under completions and then Judkins over 1.5 receptions. There's just a lot of talk this week about going through with all of that. There's a lot of profit boosts in the Underdog lobby right now. 40% boost, 50% boost. That's what I did with this one. I went Yoshivas higher than 3.5 receptions. Chase Brown higher than 5.5 receptions. Judkins higher than 1.5 receptions. And the payout gets itself up to 13.5-1. So a lot of longer shots this week. Let's see if we have anything. This was the one that initially came to me. Alec Pierce. I always go back to the Alec Pierce longest reception. Every week it's hit in 8 of 9 weeks. 25.5 longest reception. Higher. Zay Flowers more than 4.5 receptions. Saquon Barkley lower than 15.5 receiving yards against the Cowboys. 33 is at 6.5-1, pays 3.25. So we'll figure out some more. I'll have some in the newsletter a little bit later on because I want to see what Sharpstack is saying. I won big on basketball is where you want to be for this, although it's been very good, especially at island games. But it's picking out some of the bigger values on the board right now. You can hit the description and get the free week. I mean, why not give it a free week? It's been printing money. Like I said, especially in well, you can go over to basketball, see what's going on in basketball today. I like to play anything that is more than 7 on the EV chart. There's a lot going on today, depending on which books you have. Tristan Da Silva, over 4.5 rebounds. Jock Landell, under 8.5 points at plus money. Brandon Miller, under 16.5 points. So those are some that you can throw on for Saturday evening. We're here to talk about the NFL. And again, code Mayo50 gets you that 7-day trial. You can cancel after that, or you can just use code Mayo50 and get 50% off the Sharpstack tool, which has everything. It has all the projections. It has every DFS tool, including the optimizer, all of the research tools, all of the premium articles that are up on 4for4.com. Code Mayo50 at the Sharpstack level will get you access to everything. It even has ARBs. Any good ARBs this week? This one's not bad. So if you bet $500, You have $500 to bet on Braylon Staley receptions in college football. You can go over the 5.5 at Hard Rock, under 5.5 at ESPN Bet. Tells you what to bet on either side and lock yourself in a guaranteed profit at $24. Doesn't sound fun when you're doing it, but that's a guaranteed profit. If you have the bankroll to do that, even start small, you can build that up very bigly if you have access to a lot of these books. But from a pure NFL perspective on Sunday, the computer says that the best value bet on the board right now, good Lord, this is terrifying. JJ McCarthy under 0.5 interceptions at plus 160. And that is at BetMGM right now. Take a look at, because it just depends. I mean, that juice is pretty big. It's plus 160 at BetMGM. It's plus 126 at DraftKings right now. It's plus 125 at ESPN Bet, plus 121 at Bookmaker, when Bookmaker is probably the sharpest book on the market. So you're getting an extra 39 cents of juice on your money per cent at BetMGM versus the other places. That's why it rates out as the best prop on the board, because it is price sensitive to that just the odds will tell you. I mean, we can just take a look at his projections right now. Go take a look at JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy is projected for 0.9 interceptions in this game. So the actual that they have him throwing it lower than 1 most of the time anyway is the median projection. So getting plus money at plus 160 is pretty big on that. 1.6 times your money if that's the way it's going to go. But, I hate that because I just find it terrifying. I think he's going to throw a pick, but what do I know? I get these things wrong all the time. With the return of Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell rushing yards against the Bears under 24.5 at minus 120 at Hard Rock would be the number. It's minus 22. It's 22.5, 20.5 at other places. So you're getting 4 extra yards by going at Hard Rock, but that's only in Florida. So we'll just take those off the board for a second to see some of the other ones. Pat Freiermuth under 20.5 receiving yards against the Bears. Mac Hollins under 29.5 receiving yards with the return of the Keyshawn Butte man in that game against the Bengals. Colston Loveland under 30.5 rushing yards. Fanatics has Chris Olave under 5.5 receptions at almost even money. Jonathan Taylor over 2.5 receptions against the Chiefs at Fanatics is paying minus 105. That number is minus 132, minus 138, minus 145, minus 150 in other spots. So at Fanatics, you're getting minus 153 at DraftKings, minus 155 at Sharp, at Pinnacle. Again, Bookmaker and Pinnacle, the two sharpest markets on the biz. So depending on where you bet. So for example, at Hard Rock, over 2.5 receptions, minus 175, minus 105 at Fanatics. You are getting an extra 70 cents per dollar just to bet it at Fanatics over the worst in the market, which is going to be Hard Rock. But even versus like DraftKings, it's almost 50 cents of difference. So if you have Fanatics, that is the spot to play the Jonathan Taylor receptions. You can always put it against how often does that hit. Let's see. Jonathan Taylor receptions in this game, the median projection is 2.92, so that is the number, but it's saying it goes over more often than not, closer to 3 than 2. So anytime you can get around even money, and minus 105 for that is going to be a very good situation. I want to see what they're projecting Sanders at. Shadur Sanders, 158.6 passing yards. There are 170s on the market still if that's the route that you want to go. I should have that as the boost up on cool bet. So these are some of the different options that you can take this week. Mitchell Tinsley for the Bengals, over 10.5 receiving yards, rates out really well. He would probably be working as the number 3 behind Yoshivas and T. Higgins in that game, although they might just end up putting themselves in a lot of 2 wide receiver, multiple tight end sets. And there's only so many receptions to go around in that game as well, but only 10.5 yards. That could be one catch. This is one I actually really like. I'm trying to find a way. I wonder what they have on Underdog for this one. Let's just go to the Pick'em game for a second and check out Rachaad White. I mentioned Rachaad White earlier, he's out and continues to be out. Maybe back next week. Sean Tucker probably going to get the majority of the work on the ground. What do we have for rushing yards? They're not even posting a rushing yard total. Oh, Underdog, what are you doing to me here? I don't see rushing yards. Rushing attempts, rushing plus receiving, longest rush, first quarter rushing yards, first half rushing yards, game high rushing yards. Probably don't want to do that one. Once they release the total for rushing yards, it's probably going to be around 29.9, which we're seeing at other places right now. It's 30.5 at BetMGM. The rest of the market has it as low as 26. That's at DraftKings, at 25 at Sharpbook. So under 30.5 is a really good number for that. It's just, again, Sean Tucker on the ground, Rachaad White through the air is probably the way that you want to do it. If you want to play that first half under 4 rushing yards, it's 5.5. That's one rush. You can get lucky and go do that. You want to have the bulk of it. Maybe under 9.5 rushing attempts would be a spot if we hit the projections and go to Rachaad White in the Sunday Night Football game. We'll have our 3 favorite plays on the Sunday night show as well, so this could end up being one of them. I mean, his projections right around where they're at, only 3 yards lower at 27.5, 18 yards receiving. And for Sean Tucker, there's Trey Tucker. Let's see, Sean Tucker in this spot. 47.5. So yeah, he's projected for around 13 rushing attempts. Rachaad White is only right around where we got rushing attempts in this game. Where do you got rushing attempts? Don't even have the rushing attempts in for Rachaad White right now, but we'll get those up when you take a look at the overall projections and everything gets solidified on Saturday evening. But right around 3 receptions, I thought was pretty key. If we're looking at receptions in that underdog spot for him, 2.5, although that is juiced to the higher in that situation. So that's probably not the route that you want to go. Let's switch over to DraftKings now and check out the 4-for-4 optimizer. The Jacobs news is still trending as if Emmanuel Wilson is going to be the starter and Jacobs is not going to be in because we do not have confirmation as of this recording on that. Obviously, the optimal will adjust itself once we get that news. It's an early game, but if that ends up becoming a split, it takes away most of the good value. We see the highest priced running backs. Obviously, Gibbs is probably the best play of all of these guys. Right now, he's coming at 21%, which is not crazy. It was going to be Trevion Henderson, but he's now dropped to right around 5% ownership with the return of Ramondre Stevenson. I don't hate Henderson in big field tournaments. Smaller field tournaments could be a bit tougher, but if you do play multiple lineups and want to make him a part of a portfolio, if they just stick with him, the matchup is glorious. Now no one is using him. Where everyone is spending their money this week? Well, Chase Brown, going to be right around 30% ownership as the primary back in the Bengals backfield. P. Ryan not playing, pass happy game script. It is perfect for him, albeit in a tough ground matchup. ETN, even with Tootin playing, seems like a pretty good spot here against the Cardinals as a part of that game stack. When we built out the optimal on the Friday show between John Tambo and I, it did feature ETN as the flex running back, just as the comeback in that game, not knowing what else is going to go on as to keep that game moving. So hopefully ETN can get it going on the ground against the Cardinals, and boom, you're off to the races. You're seeing Emmanuel Wilson, if he plays, will be right around, not if he plays, if Jacobs doesn't play, right around 20% ownership. If that doesn't happen, expect a lot of that projected 19% just to move to the exact same price to make it easy on themselves. 5,300 David Montgomery goes 10% to like 17% in an instant if that happens. Kareem Hunt is picking up some ownership near the bottom at 51 with Pacheco being out. Again, I like Bam Knight at $4,900. If you need a desperation punt running back, it's so much easier to save money at receiver this week than running back. But if you were to do it, Bam Knight would be my favorite of that bunch, only projected at 4% ownership right now. And one of the better GPP values on the slate, like per dollar, you can see he's in the positives. He's better value than, he's basically the same as Genty, but he costs $1,400 less. The best values, Gibbs, Emmanuel Wilson, if Jacobs is out, Chase Brown, Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Judkins. Don't love a lot of these guys. Most of my lineups feature Gibbs and Chase Brown, and then I'm figuring out else what to do after that. Bijan tries to sneak his way into some lineups, as does ETN, but it's very difficult at running back this week. You can see Jonathan Taylor is at an even $10,000 this week. That is wild to me. It's so hard. We tried to make lineups that fit him in. That's why he's coming in at 4% ownership. If you want to bite the bullet and go with it, be my guest. It's just hard to build lineups that way, especially if you're trying to build a game stack with Kansas City, because all their guys are super expensive as well. It doesn't really leave a lot that you can do. We looked at the anytime touchdown odds this week that Jahmyr Gibbs has a better chance of scoring a touchdown per the odds, which is not always the best way to look at it, than Jonathan Taylor, and he's $1,700 less. When you take a look at projected points, Gibbs rates out higher than Jonathan Taylor. Now the ceiling for Jahmyr Gibbs, even higher than Jonathan Taylor's this week too. As pointed out by John, that if he scores 250 yards and 3 touchdowns this week, you're probably going to need him. But it's unlikely that he comes through on that ceiling again, like we saw before the bye week. Not a great value this week. If you want to go there, go for it. Derrick Henry is the other one I've been trying to mix in to some of these situations, and I did put in Bam Knight if I needed to save the money. So that's what I'm doing with my running back core this week, just going off the projected values. Ownership at wide receiver, St. Brown, Michael Wilson, Jacoby Myers, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Even with the return of Slayton, I still like Isaiah Hodgins. You can see Slayton's coming in at $4,500. I'd still go with Hodgins at $3,300. Projects as a negative value now because of the return of Slayton, but his 12-point dogs in that game and Jameis just airing it out. Someone is live for like a really deep touchdown. I'll go with the guy at the cheaper price who should play around 60% of the snaps if I need to save the money or need a run back in that game with like I've built up a giant stack, like a Lion stack. Lion stack gets expensive. Even if you go Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, and Goff. If you want to throw Gibbs in that, even more expensive. Brock Wright is a way out of that game as the starting tight end, only $3,000. Not a bad situation to be in, but either way, that's a tough spot. T. Higgins is falling in ownership to around 15%. Rashee Rice is a bit ahead of him. Devontae Smith is around there. If we think about the best values on the board, everyone except for Christian Watson. Christian Watson continues to be very good in that offense, only 7% ownership against the Vikings, who can be had deep, and that's where you're looking at for Christian Watson. Everyone else of the best plays right now is in the double digits in ownership. The best 5 on the board, T. Higgins, who I personally don't love in this spot. I get why people do. I'd rather, again, play Yoshivas for way less money, although he does not rate out nearly as well. Let's see. Andre Yoshivas is a positive value, but only 9.7 projected fantasy points. I think he does better than that. And for the price point, that is a spot where I can save some money over T. Higgins. If you want to get tricky in that game, you can go to Booty as well, who's only $5,000. He and Alec Pierce, 2 deep threats, both at $5,000. Again, if you're trying to save money. The 4for4.com optimizer, 4for4.com/Mayo, code Mayo50. Get yourself a free week of this if you want to check it out. It'll be great over the holidays too, because there's so many different slates, and you'll be able to play all of the slates that you want, showdown, whatever one, for any game. You can just find that up in the drop-down menu for any of the sites that you want to go, whether it be Yahoo, FanDuel, DraftKings, find it all up there, and you can download the projections directly from it and make any adaptation to it that you want as well. T. Higgins, Michael Wilson, Amon-Ra, Devonta Smith, Christian Watson, the 5 best GPP values on the board right now at wide receiver. Christian Watson probably the best at the lowest ownership of that bunch. After that, you have Olave, JSN, Rice, Jameson Williams, and A.J. Brown. This is the cheapest you're ever going to find. The Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and Jalen Hurts triple stack against Dallas. I do not believe in the Dallas secondary. I do believe in its front 7. So maybe this is a good opportunity to run that one out. We couldn't quite make it work, and it's not the way that we wanted to go with our final lineup. We filled out the 10 max on the DraftKings show on Friday. Highly recommend that show. That show is getting better every single week. And just having access to Tambo and John talking through how you should construct lineups makes a huge difference. We had a huge week last week. I've been I'm not spending a ton of money on DraftKings. I'm not playing ridiculous millionaire maker lineups. I'm playing like the 150, the 100, and I'm playing that $10 10 max every single week and having a lot of success. I'm not getting shut out. I'm having high upside performances, but most weeks, I'm either double my money or I'm like down, 20% of my money. It's been very good thinking through how to better construct lineups this year. So again, in terms of ownership, St. Brown at 32, Michael Wilson at 22, Jacoby Myers at 20. Don't love Myers unless it's a part of that game stack. I just feel like instead of at $4,700, you can just play Parker Washington instead. I don't think that they're totally dissimilar. And Wan'Dale Robinson, I'd rather play Isaiah Hodgins in that spot for cheaper too, instead of eating the relative chalk with those guys. Like, they're not super chalky, but they are 2 of the 4 highest owned players of the week. On the tight end side, McBride is too cheap and he's not owned enough. That's my personal take. He rates out as the best value on the slate, even as the most expensive tight end at $6,800. He projects for 22 fantasy points at a onesie position, only coming in at 22% owned. Hell, even if he got up to 30% owned, that is still too low for the production that Trey McBride is providing right now. Kelsey comes in second in ownership. Andrews, Henry, Fannin, don't like any of those guys. It would either be McBride, and I'm making an emphasis to spend up on him, or probably just go to like the cheapest guy as a part of a game stack. Brock Wright being an example of that if I'm going with Goff. And hell, even then, I'd probably play a 2 tight end set with Trey McBride. That's how much I like Trey McBride this week. The best values on the board for GPPs per dollar. McBride, more than double, almost triple the next guy, who is Travis Kelce. Pitts, Goddard, Loveland, Bowers, Henry. Don't really want anything to do with any of those guys. Juwan Johnson at $4,000 could be a spot. If you really wanted to pay down, I played Andrews as a part of a Lamar stack with Trey McBride, again at the same time as a double tight end set. But Brock Wright, Mason Taylor at 34. These are some of the options that you can go to. They're not appealing. Trey McBride, he's appealing. And that, again, is why you need to cheap out at receiver more than likely this week in order to gain some of that money back so you can still afford the 2 or 3 balanced running backs to go along with Trey McBride. Honestly, Trey McBride should be $8,000, maybe more, at tight end. That's how much better he has been at tight end than everyone else. If he was a receiver, he would be $8,000, but he's not, so play him well you can. Quarterback, what we're seeing is a lot of Patrick Mahomes. Not really for me. Mahomes, May, Goff, Brissett, and Hurts all project between 10 and 12% ownership. Lawrence is just after that. Only $6,700 Lamar is 8%. He's actually easier to stack now because he's not running since this injury. So you got to pick your poison with Lamar. We saw him against a bad defense in Miami 3 weeks ago. He threw 4 touchdowns. And because he's not running, it's either Derrick Henry at the goal line or they're scoring longer touchdowns. You just go Lamar, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews. That is an excellent triple stack for that game. Then you can play McBride. You can mix in A.D. Mitchell, who sucks, but he's very, very cheap. Because you're playing McBride and Andrews, you can't fit Mason Taylor into that lineup. These are all decent situations to look into. Winston, don't hate Winston here in pure catch-up mode with a lot of those cheap options that you can go to in that game with the Giants as 12-point underdogs against the Detroit Lions. Indoors is nice too with Dart being out. Projected ownership at defense this week. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Saints, Lions, Raiders, Browns. Like the Browns, like the Saints, they're cheap. If you can find a way up to the Seahawks, it's tough because of the restrictions that you have on this week, but the Seahawks and Packers, both in fantastic situations. The Lions at 37 obviously make a ton of sense. You can pair them up with Montgomery or Gibbs if you really want to, but that's a nice spot. The Ravens at $3,900 are fantastic as well against the Jets and Tyrod, but some of the spots you could look at, Daniel Jones has been taking more sacks recently, so $3,100 3% Chiefs defense I like. If you choose to fade the Jacksonville-Arizona game, either one of those defenses works just as leverage in that spot. The Cardinals only 2% projected ownership right now. And there's no Lane Johnson. Remember that. For the Eagles this week. So the Cowboys defense with Overshown and Quentin Williams got a ton of pressure against the Raiders. Maybe that will happen again. Maybe not because it's the terrible Cowboys secondary, but that front seven looks far more formidable this week. Maybe, hell, even Vikings D at 2% against the Packers if you just want a leverage defense, if you're not playing any Packers, if you don't end up going to Emmanuel Wilson, even if Jacobs gets declared out. It's outdoors. It's Jordan Love. They bring a bunch of pressure. It's not the craziest of situations. It would be Seahawks for me, but more realistically, Saints if I need the money, Browns if I have a little bit more, and if I can pay up, I would go to the Seahawks. That is what I am doing at the defensive position. But if you want to see how we broke down all of our lineups this week, I highly recommend Spotify, Apple, YouTube, on Mayo Media Network, or under the PME. Check it out. I'll have a complete write-up of this in the cheat sheet. So in the cheat sheet now, I'm doing just the bare bones. Here's what you need to know. No color, no commentary. And then below that is kind of the exact same thing, but with commentary. More of a summarization of this show with what we are adapting to with new news that does come out later on Saturday evening. So please smash a like, sub to the channel, turn on notifications, and sub to that free newsletter, or just check it out for free at 4for4.com as well. If you want all the rankings, they're up at 4for4.com. The direct link is in the description right now. All right, if you got a question, leave it in there. If you got some props that you like, let me know. I'm all about it. See, I'm throwing down cash this week on Underdog props. If there's Underdog props you like, hit them up in the description. All right, I'll be back on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then again, live. These are both live, by the way, at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. Then Monday, live at 10:45 a.m. Eastern time, which is the most profitable show on this channel. The Monday Night Football prop draft has been awesome, with more of a review as well with my dudes Connor and Ryan from betsports.com. Thank you all for watching. Again, live on Sunday, so I'll see you then.
Mayo experience! Experience!